topic today is aftermarket training in the age of rapid tech changes. How to navigate your training needs. Boy, I have to tell you something. This is going to be great. Ryan Kooiman is with us, the Director of Training for Standard Motor Products. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Carm. Thanks for having me again.
He's sitting to my right, and across from me is Bob Pattengale, National Training Manager for Bosch.
Glad to be here.
I've been trying to have you on my show for so long, and finally I have you, even though we're in a panel discussion here, Bob. Maybe one day we'll do a one-on-one.
You pinned me down.
I know. Thank you. Jon Forro is with us, owner of AST and an automotive instructor. And you teach for AVI all the time, right?
I'm pretty much a hired gun.
I love that.
Anybody that wants it, I'll do it.
Hired gun. So we're at AVI, the AVI headquarters and their studios. What a fabulous facility is here. And Paul Lauer's been just a great host for not only me, but everyone here who's attending. Not only is there technology classes, I think you taught an air conditioning.
Air conditioning. Yep.
What was the name of it?
Keeping it cool.
Keeping it cool. That's good. You're doing a hybrid right now.
Hybrid and electric vehicles.
And we're right in between, the morning and the afternoon session.
Correct.
So, and I know that there's been some business management training here too. Now, Bob, what did you teach yesterday?
Start-stop technology.
That's so cool, isn't it? Wow. So, we've got a topic here, everyone, that I guess is near and dear to your hearts, but probably one of the most critical topics in the industry. We're not training enough of our technicians, and we've got to figure out how to do more of it. Bob, let me ask you the first question. How do we know we need it? Because I know you're big on assessments.
Yeah, it's the bottom line is you get shop owners ask you all the time, how do we develop technicians? Where are we going to get the next generation of technicians? So the request to us is universal, and it has not changed for probably more than 40 years. So we know that there is an issue, and the question is, how do we engage the shop owners and technicians in a way that they know they're getting the right training they need at the right time and to build their skills? Too much of what we do is generic training, where we send out a flyer and we invite a bunch of people to come, but we really don't know if we're targeting the correct audience. So to me, we know what the mission is. We know what we need to do. The question is, are we being effective at gathering the proper audience and delivering the content that those individuals need specifically?
Got it. And how do we do that? Any idea? I mean, guys, it's like we have to have specific training for specific need. And you stop throwing this stuff up against the wall, right, Ryan?
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of assessment over the last couple of years as well. I've gone back to college myself a couple of years ago and just reinvigorated the learning process for me as an individual. And I've been able to carry that corporately throughout our organization. And I agree with Bob's thoughts on that. I learn a lot myself through assessment. When I'm taking an exam or a test or something like that, a lot of them are open book tests. I learn more by doing the research at that point because it's a very pointed question and I come to that conclusion. So as Bob mentioned, we've really changed our training structure to that of listening to a panel. This is what the industry feels they need, and then we vet that out, provide the training, and then come up with the assessment afterwards. And are we hitting those targets? And learning objectives to me is a big thing. We need to be very clear. During this section, you will learn this, and then the attendee goes, that's what I'm paying attention to right now, and that's the objective of this session.
So no participation trophies anymore.
Nope. Not with me. One of the things I do, Carm, we all do the seminar style training like we were talking about before we came up here. And you kind of have to do that because it's like an open house to get people familiar with the training that's being provided and everything else. But I have a 60 questionnaire little pre-test, if you want to call it that when I'm talking to shop owners or a group of shop owners, and they're interested in training, I tell them, hey, I can provide you this pre-assessment test. Send it out to all your guys. They don't have to put their name on it or anything like that. They can use a number system where only you know the answer to who's who on the number. And I have them take that, and it has a whole host of different topics for questions. So anything from basic electricity to computer controlled diagnostics to whatever. And now when I go back and I grade these tests, I'll give them back to the shop owner and I'll say, you sent 5 guys to this pre-assessment type of test here. 3 of them are kind of weak in basic electricity, let's say, and this guy could probably use some more computer control training or whatever. And this way they have a pretty good understanding of what their needs are on an individual basis. And then it's up to the shop owner to decide, possibly, do I want to just send all 5 guys to all the training, or do I want to just maybe save some of my training dollars and send just the guys to those sections of the classes that I think they need more help in?
Is this the future? Is that what Bosch is doing?
Yes, that we've started. If you went to the ABI On Demand site and you clicked on the Bosch logo, the very first tab you would see is knowledge assessments. And we have 6 of them that are 10 questions in length. And we have topics like GDI, common rail diesel, fuel pumps, oxygen sensors. So it's a theme based upon parts we sell, but also from an educational perspective. So 10 questions, you score 80% or better, then the content. You could use the rule of 2 and say, if I went to this seminar, I'll learn 2 things and I'll be happy. But that's not enough. Those guys know what they're doing. If you score 30 to 70%, that seminar is right. So the shop owner knows out of 5 technicians, I have 3 individuals that scored in that 30 to 70%. 1 guy scored 80% or better. And then I had 1 person that only got 1 question right. So the shop owner can say, you know what, this seminar, what we're targeting, if you're going to go to a Bosch GDI seminar, you would then know that person needs remedial training. It may be too advanced for them. You may send them anyways, but at least now we know who are the right individuals that need to go to training. Then we send them to a training seminar, so they attend a GDI seminar taught by Bosch, and then you complete the seminar. And you kind of alluded to it earlier, we don't give certificates of attendance anymore. We only give certificates of achievement. So when you're done with the seminar, you go back online and you take a post test and you pass it 80% or better. You click the print button and you print your own certificate. So if a shop owner knew 2 of my technicians scored 40% on the assessment, they went to the seminar, and now they came back and they both scored 90% or above, the shop owner truly knows the time spent by all was the right thing to do.
So there's an ROI on their investment.
Correct.
Are you guys doing that at Standard?
Yeah, it's a little different than that because we fit into our customers' overall training package.
Mm-hmm.
So, the group, for example, might be hosting different classes put on by different vendors. And so they ask us to fill different slots throughout the year. So it's hard to qualify a guy coming into one of those.
But shouldn't that change?
It depends, because as we mentioned earlier, sometimes as an open house, it's kind of a customer appreciation opportunity.
No, I get the open house.
So
I really do. But when you're done with the open house, can you convince the guys to go deeper?
Yeah. And that's where we have the 3 different training options ourselves. We have hands-on, come to our facility. We'll do a deep dive 2-day hands-on class if you want to. We also have the online training component. So that's for the guys that leave the class and go, I wish I could know more about this. Come to online. There's always the guys like probably the 3 of us here. We're the propeller head technicians ourselves. We might know a lot about it, but we want to learn even more about it. And so we have that option to go a little bit deeper than what's at the class. We've just developed an app. It's actually in testing, just came out yesterday. Similar to what Bob said, we're no longer giving just a certificate of consuming oxygen that night in the room. After the class, you can log into the app and then go take a question or an assessment test afterwards. And if you get the 80% or greater, now you print off a certificate of successful completion for CEUs.
But the app is new, but you've always been doing
Absolutely.
Pre and post assessment.
No, that's new for us as well.
It is.
Yes.
Okay. How long has Bosch been doing it?
A couple of years now. We
Okay.
started about 2.5 years ago.
John, here at AVI, are they doing this pre and post?
I know that AVI is doing it.
Yeah.
For my personal company in Ohio,
Mhm.
I've been probably doing the pre-assessment for about, I want to say close to 10 years. I don't do a post-assessment, because I'm dealing with the local guys in
Mhm.
my backyard, so
Yeah,
to speak.
yeah,
So their post-assessment is actually their bosses, service managers, whatever, are seeing that they're now capable of doing better diagnostics and they're not misdiagnosing cars or repairing cars more efficiently, quicker, whatever the case happens to be.
Are you finding that you're getting called by independent shop owners and says, hey, come on out for a weekend and give us this class? One particular shop, no matter what the cost is, he says, listen, I got a bunch of buddies and we're gonna split your cost and come out here. Let's do a day of theory, and let's do a Friday and then do a Saturday hands-on. Are you doing that?
Yeah. When I first got started, I at first just did local training. And then I had the good fortune, I wrote a couple books that won some awards and stuff. So then it opened up the national market for me. And that gave me a lot of exposure. But I was trying to sell classes outside of my state. And without any failure, what would always happen is I'd sell a class and we're supposed to have 15, 20 guys. So the finances would make sense. But when I show up that first night of the class, there's 3 or 4 guys that never bothered to show up. Well, now the finances don't make sense anymore. So now what I do is I basically, if Ryan were to call me up, which he's not going to, but if he was a shop owner.
Nothing personal.
Yeah,
it's just,
if he was a shop owner and said, hey, I'm in Michigan area and I got a group of guys and we want to do a class, I say, that's fine. This is my fee plus whatever the travel expenses are, and I'm going to charge you. Now, you can include as many people in this class up to a certain level as you want, but at the end of the night, I'm only coming to you for the money. I don't care if Billy down the street hasn't paid you yet or anything else. That's all on you. So ever since I started doing that, which was probably about 5 years ago, I've never had a problem with making it make sense financially.
People are still showing up?
They're still showing up, you know.
Good.
That's not his problem anymore.
Yeah.
No, it's not your problem anymore.
And I want to give him props quick a minute. He wrote one of his award-winning books was really a life changer for me at one point. So it's kind of cool how things come full circle.
And which book was that?
See that? As one of his Silver Bullet.
It was a Silver Bullet book?
Book that I still actually have that somewhere. I should bring it up for him to autograph at some point.
That makes me feel good, Ryan.
Wow, silver bullets. Yeah, that's how business is done today, right?
Well, I got a lot of hatred from my fellow peers for making that book, because they all said I wasn't teaching the guys anything, but all of us in the room were technicians once ourselves. And I feel, honestly, as a technician, when you attend a training class, it's more than you just want to come away learning 1 or 2 things. You want an element that you could take what you just covered the night before, the day before in class, and put it to use immediately and see a return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my theory behind that book. It was all about pattern failures, and if you had a check engine light come in or whatever the case happened to be, stalling or whatever, if you looked in this one general area, had a picture, and you saw that vacuum hose was split or whatever, that helped you diagnose the car and it helped you make money. So it wasn't really a dedicated training class. It was more like a return on investment for coming into the classes.
Got it. Hey guys, I'm going to give kudos to Jasper for continuing to make the Town Hall Academy free for the aftermarket for all of our perpetual students in the industry. When your customer's vehicle engine or transmission fails, it's not the end of the road. A remanufactured drivetrain product from Jasper Engines and Transmissions will give your customers a new lease on life. Go to jasperengines.com for more information. So part of our title here is how to navigate your training needs. How do we tell the service professional to literally, I know the assessments are right. Once we get them, how do they go about picking what they need to do to keep their shop at the highest levels of latest technology and repairs, which breeds efficiency, which breeds happy customers?
I think part of the difficulty is availability of finding that training, right? I mean, we do over 2,500 events a year, live on site classes, which sounds like a lot, but sometimes we're hitting a market only 3-4 times a year. And so, we've got 30 classes in our syllabus. If
what you're saying, it's not enough for the size of the industry.
Correct.
However, the same faces keep showing up.
Absolutely. We are preaching to the choir. And I saw in a Facebook post the other day, I think it was Matt Fanslow said something, how do we increase the size of the choir?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. What do we do?
that's the magical question, right? That we all, if we could figure that out, that would be the silver bullet.
That would
right?
be the best silver bullet ever.
even more job security than you currently have.
Yeah. You know, to me, it's a combination of things that the shop owner has to have the courage to dig into their individual technician skill sets.
Amen.
Then have the courage then to say they need training, and I don't care what it costs. Investing in my technicians is the future of my business. Flip side of that could be presented that I'm a technician. I want to call myself a professional. I want to be paid a top wage. So shouldn't I be working on my skills in order to become more successful and better employed as a capable person? So it always seems like the shop owner is the one that is held responsible for training his individuals who work for him. Shouldn't there be a responsibility as myself? I expect, out of myself to get the training that I need to do my job, whether it be learning Adobe Illustrator or how to do a video or whatever. Those are skill sets I didn't have as a technician, but I knew they would be useful as a training developer. So I went and got that training. I didn't expect Bosch to pay for me to go learn how to do Adobe Illustrator. That was my responsibility to sharpen my skills. So I think it's a two-way street. The training providers are out there. We all have empty seats in our classrooms that we would love to have more individuals in those seats. So I don't think it's a capacity issue. It's a matter of a desire to show up and attend those events.
It's personal drive, right? It's I have the same story and same feelings as Bob there. For myself as a technician, I was driven to succeed. I don't know whether it's ego or pride or whatever. I wasn't going to let a car leave my bay that I could not fix. And so training was the key to the success on that. And that was driven by me. Fortunately, I found an employer that allowed me to, kind of grow my wings and invested in that. And so that's where I always go back to that. And I've said that in many other podcasts. It starts with the individual pushing. If the shop owner is forcing the employees to go, you're going to have not as good results.
So, John, you got a platform here. You're a shop owner. You're a trainer. Everything that we've talked about, you've experienced.
I have.
What's the message to not only maybe it's not the shop owner that we need to talk to, but like Ryan says, maybe you need to do a mano to mano with the technicians that will watch this and say, listen, guys.
I can tell you from my personal experience. I was fortunate. My father had an auto repair shop. When I was 11 years old, my dad came to me on summer break and said, "Hey, you're coming to work with me tomorrow." So I'm thinking, not really what my summer plans were, but from that point on, I was going to my father's shop every single day. Even once school started again, my mom would pick me up from school, take me to my dad's shop. So I had the great luxury of having more experience than anybody else. So when I got to be of age to go to high school auto mechanics, I was the top in my class, not necessarily because I deserved to be the top, but I was just around it with way more experience.
Right.
Unfortunately, my ego did not let me see the big picture of things. So I graduated high school. I'm now working full time at my father's shop, and I'm thinking I have more knowledge and experience than these guys that are been doing this for 30 years. Because I never experienced any kind of failure, because my experience is up to that point where I was around it for a long time. If I didn't know something, it wasn't really my problem. It was more my dad's
no responsibility.
And I never experienced failure. About that time, there was talk about licensing the industry in Ohio. And there was like this beta program. And they said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to allow you to take a test to see if you can pass out of these different modules. My dad, being the smart man he was, went ahead and sent me to that test. That was the first time in my life I realized I didn't know anything that I thought that I knew. I mean, I failed all 3 of the different modules of that. And from that point on, I said, it was like somebody hit me upside the head with a brick, because I honestly thought my skill level was way higher than what it really was. So that was what opened the door for my personal desire to want to learn to be the best.
Guys, that's a great message for every tech in our industry. My skill level, I thought my skill level was higher than it was. And the survivalship of, let's not even talk about the technician shortage. Let's talk about technician competency. The team that we have in play.
Mm-hmm.
And in your classes that you're all doing, are first of all, you're probably thrilled that you can do knowledge transfer. Okay. And they're walking away with this stuff. They say, wow, we graduated another class of 12 or whatever the number is. And I know they'll be better for it. And so will the industry. Do you get through to every one of them?
Mixed results.
Yes. Yes. We can only deliver the knowledge. It's up to the individual sitting in the seat to absorb the knowledge and then transfer the knowledge to where they work. Usually in every class we do, I try to make sure we assign homework assignments. I won't be there to grade the homework. But if we teach start-stop technology or we teach evaporative emissions or whatever the case may be, if we presented a principle and then we encourage you to go practice that principle as soon as you get back to the shop, the chances of knowledge transfer and usage will be tremendous. So that's something we've added to our hands-on courses. When you come for the 2-day hands-on course, you go through the process. Then we give you the tasks that you have to do when you take it back to the shop. If you don't hand in your homework after you get back to the shop, so we taught you how to current ramp a fuel pump using a lab scope. We've gone through all that process. You practiced it in the 2-day class. Now you have to go back and show the shop owner that you can do that same task there. If you don't hand in your homework, you do not get a certificate. So, shop owners would always encourage that hands-on training and that transfer of knowledge. But if you don't practice what you've learned, it disappears. So for me, I was thinking you were taught how to do something, but you really didn't know why you were doing it.
Exactly.
Right. And that's at an early age. I was lucky. My dad did 42 years at a Dodge dealership. So from the time I was 11 years old, I was in the dealership on a regular basis. By the time I was 16, I was done with school. I graduated as a junior. I only wanted to work on cars. I had no interest in doing anything else. I am not going to college. I'm going to work on cars because I love doing it, and it became a passion. I was lucky because every person that worked with my dad said, you're not allowed to do it until you know why. And you're going to do a procedure. You're going to go step by step in the service manual. You're not going to skip steps because you don't know what steps to skip. You're going to know why you do it. You're going to know the theory of operation. And if you know that, then it doesn't matter. I don't need a trouble chart. I don't need a silver bullet. And that was kind of the issue of the time, right? That people talk about where you got troubleshooter cartridge. Here are the top 5 things that could go wrong. To me, and I'm sure that there's people out there that might, be pulled back. The worst thing we ever did in our industry was create a troubleshooter cartridge. It's the worst thing that ever happened. Here's the code. Here are the 5 things that could be wrong. And what did technicians do? They didn't test. They said, well, number 1 must be the most common, so let me just do that.
Inventory diagnostics.
Yes.
Swaptronics?
There's all parts cannon, all kinds of names for this
lots
stuff,
of names.
You quickly realize a pattern here. John got into it because of his dad. Bob got into it because of his dad. I had the misfortune. My dad was a Detroit diesel mechanic, so guess how we all ended up.
Interesting.
But we still had passion, right? Because
absolutely.
I have a brother who wants to have nothing to do with the automotive industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not all siblings become great technicians, right? You have to have a desire, because if you went and you visited at a shop and you spent a couple days there and said, this is not for me, your dad would have figured that out pretty fast and say, this is probably not for them.
Mm-hmm.
He still had to babysit you, right? Still had to take you there and hang out. But you find a passion. My brother went to the same dealership as I did, 3 years younger than me, but he has no desire whatsoever to turn a wrench.
Guys, has anyone come up to you in class during a break at the end and said, Ryan, I am so challenged by tech. I'm so glad I'm here. Thanks for helping me through this. What can I do? I mean, what can I do to get better? Are you just trying to tell a person, if it's not in here, if it's not in the heart, I can't help you, but it's got to be in the heart?
A lot of the times those people go, how do I get on your path? You seem to have had a successful career as a technician.
Right.
What steps do I need to take? And there's a lot of great libraries. I mean, everybody's got videos here. There's a lot of self-study stuff that people can do. To piggyback on what Bob was saying earlier, I store a bunch of my favorite quotes on my phone. And just yesterday I was scrolling through and one came up from Bernard Shaw and it said, if you teach a man, he will learn nothing. It's all about the action he takes afterwards, and he needs to put that into play. So we can tell people to blue in the face. And that's my one recommendation I give to people. Go out and practice what I just taught you tonight. You know, we gave you all kinds of information. There's probably a lot of stuff you even missed in my presentation or I didn't cover, but go back and read it and put it to practice. I remember in the late 90s, I grew up in Michigan, so it's the big three, right? I wanted to learn about Volkswagen. Well, how do I learn about Volkswagen? Bought myself a VW Jetta and a VAGCOM and a laptop. And boy, did I learn a lot about VW that way by owning one. You know, and same with probably John and hybrids. How do you learn about this stuff? You own one, you drive one, you tear it apart, you dig into it. And that's technicians are hands-on type people.
Are you an anomaly?
No.
There are guys doing the same thing today.
For sure.
They're saying, listen, I'm so committed to learn this particular model, this platform, this concept, this theory, that I'm all in on it. And I'm going to be the best that I possibly can be. Yet, we're seeing the same people in the classes, and we need more to be engaged. And the word that I heard was commitment. That's the word that I heard. Total, unadulterated, deep into the pool commitment. And if that commitment was there, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having every time I think of a concept, I start thinking, well, I'm not being paid, but X amount. And why should I? And am I in a dead end career? Will this shop survive? Why? It goes back to the if it's not good at home, if it's not good inside, then I can't get the energy to get up to make the commitment to be a forever student.
Right.
Well, the commitment's three parts. I mean, we've talked about the student, we've talked about the shop owner, and there's tons of good shop owners out there that require X amount of training hours per year. There's tons of good technicians out there that want good training. But there's also the commitment of the trainer, because it's our jobs to make sure that when we deliver information on whatever subject, that it's actually relative information. It's information that they can use and information that they need. We have to also try to reach every single person that's actually in attendance. Now, it's hard to do if you make a video and somebody buys a video, it's limited as to what they're going to get out of it because there's no one-on-one interaction. But if you're in a live training class, it's our jobs as professionals to make sure that even if somebody's lagging behind, to pick up on the subtle clues that I just said something and I could tell by the expression on these people's face, they don't understand what I just said. Mm-hmm. Or I can understand that everybody does, but this guy in the back corner, I know this is way over his head. So I gotta give him more special, not to the expense of the rest of the class, but I got to give him more special attention so that he might not walk away with as much as everybody else is getting out of the class, but he's walking away with a lot more than he would have if he just sat there and I didn't pick up on those things. So it's a commitment. You got the perfect word, but it's a commitment on everybody, all the players' parts.
Okay, you said student, shop owner, and what was the third?
Instructor. The person delivering the class has to be able to do that.
You're kind of performing your own little assessment right there. I mean,
exactly.
That's what I think about it in a school setting. That's the purpose of assessments, to understand the learning path of each individual student. I mean, if the teacher in high school is doing their job properly and using assessments properly, everybody leaves the class with an A. Sure. Because you give some people a little more attention and tutoring and bring them up here. And so, as you mentioned, as an instructor, you have to be able to cater to somebody and go, okay, judging by the puzzled looks in the room here, or we use poll questions. We have little remote devices. And if not everybody answered the question right, okay, maybe I need to step back here a little bit and explain this a little different way and try and get that aha moment to happen and make the point clear before we move on with something. And as you mentioned, you have to be very aware of the audience there and understanding who's picking up on what.
But going back to your question, I just throw this out there. When someone comes up to me and asks that similar question, what should I do? My response back to them is, well, what do you feel you're missing? What do you feel, what do you know you're not capable of doing today? Because I can't really answer the question until you tell me what you feel that you're deficient in. Are you struggling with diagnosing with electricity? Are you struggling with, you know what a lab scope is, you have one, but you don't know how to use it. So until you provide me with what you believe are the deficiencies you have at this point in time, then, you know, I'm not able to answer the question. And, you know, all of us get the similar question. What's the next scan tool should I buy? What's the next piece of equipment should I buy? And I have to respond, I don't know. I don't know your shop.
What do you work on?
You know, so let's talk about that. What do you have? What are you struggling with? What are the times when you were told by service information to perform this task, or you went to a class where a lab scope was shown? Do you have those tools? Do you know how to use those tools? And that's when we as instructors, I think, can provide the proper advice. I think the difficulty is how do I figure out if I should go to a Jon class, a standard class, a Bosch class, a Napa class, a World, which one should I go to fill that deficiency gap? And I think that's an issue that we have to work on as a training industry to help provide that piece that says, here's the deficiencies you would fill if you attended these courses.
Well, for the survival of the aftermarket, we all need to work together to keep training our customers there. Otherwise, we fold up and it all becomes a dealer specialty world.
Scary thought.
It is.
All right, guys. Hey, do you know the Jasper story? Well, Jasper has over 2,000 associates, 3 manufacturing facilities, 2 distribution centers, and 45 branch offices all across the country. And they're all working to produce, transport, and deliver to you the perfect product. Now, that's what they do best at Jasper. They keep customers happy so you can. Thanks, Jasper, for supporting the Town Hall Academy. Guys, in fact, I think it was you and I chatted yesterday for just a moment. If you know, this whole commitment, if you sat down with someone who says, Bob, I'm ready to make a commitment, would you say then you need to take these basic classes over and over again? And what would they be?
You know, it's a 100% true statement. If you have to go back to the basics, you know, typically when we receive phone calls for technical support or a variety of things, or someone has attended a course and they have questions, when they get stuck, it's usually because they forgot to use the old basic strategies and rules, right? And that's what happens sometimes when we've been in the business a long, long time. You know, we start making assumptions based upon what we've seen in the past, and we have to guard against that and make sure that we follow best recommended practices. And I'm not saying that you know, your gut will tell you many times you're heading the right direction, but when your gut fails you got to go back to the basics and principles. And to me, that's for us in the technology we're talking about. You know, if you do not have a strong, you know, foundation in electricity, those fundamentals, if you don't really know how to perform a voltage drop, if you don't know what that means on the ground side, this or that, you're going to be stuck. And the other piece I'll throw out there, you can go to a service manual right now. I could point out several manufacturers, which I won't bring them up, but right now you could go to a manual and they would tell you to diagnose a fuel pump, and you're checking the circuit, and the manual for a late model vehicle says unplug the connector, put your multimeter in series with the connector, turn the key on and check for voltage. And if the voltage is above 12 volts or wherever that voltage value is in the spec, you have passed the test, replace the fuel pump. Now, in the same manual, in the preface, it shows you how to perform a loaded voltage drop test. But if you don't have a good foundation and you don't know you've been led astray, how do you know that you were just told to do something incorrect? And it's in service information now. So unless you have a good foundation, you won't be able to read the tea leaves and say, somebody's taking me down the wrong path. I need to use my knowledge that I've learned and not follow the trail of broken dreams that ends with replace with no good part. That's a Mark Warren deal. You know, that's something he coined many, many years ago.
But you probably face the same thing I do. How successful are you selling a basic electricity?
Well, now, wait a minute.
So here we go.
All right. So here's my question. Do you have a title called Basic Electricity for the Advanced Technician?
We just came out with a 6-part series in our on-demand classes because we found that while people might not show up to a basic electricity class in front of their peers, you know, their ego won't allow them to do it. People do some pretty strange stuff online in the privacy of their own home, right? including watching basic electric classes. So
we just broke the code here.
For
We just broke the code.
Yep.
All right, so get in your PJs and watch a basic electricity class, right?
But that's just it. There's so much stuff. Like even yesterday, somebody caught me at lunch yesterday and said, "Okay, Ryan, I see you're doing an air conditioning class. What's the level of it? Is it for beginners or advanced technicians?" And I'm like, I honestly don't know how to answer you here. I'm going to cover some very much basics. I did air conditioning for 18 years. Granted, Michigan's usually on a Wednesday. We have summer, which is our air conditioning season. But I didn't know a lot of those basics. I was able to fix the cars, kind of as John was saying, but I didn't know exactly everything about it. And so my class yesterday was covering, and it's a little intimidating. This whole crowd here is from South Florida. I'm teaching them air conditioning. They know a lot more than I do. But without doubt, every one of them walked out and said, "Man, I learned some really cool stuff yesterday. I didn't realize I was supposed to flush it that way. And I didn't know I was supposed to evacuate the system for 45 minutes. So there's a lot of basics that people just aren't doing, and they're making mistakes, and they're not doing the job right the first time. Even though they're experienced guys and know the high level stuff, they forget the basics that allow them to be successful the first time.
I'm a 20-year automotive aftermarket technician. I'm working in a pretty decent shop. I haven't been to training in 10 years. Is my conscience bothering me? I mean, every time a new challenge comes into the shop, am I thinking, "Whoa, man, I'm gonna have to phony through this diagnostics"? You know, are maybe the shop isn't offering, maybe they're not getting off their duff and making the commitment. And how do we get the majority of our industry to stop having that personal introspective and say, "I'm not worthy to do the next job," and make the commitment to get out and be trained? Because you just said it. It was a perfect example. Oh my God, I've been doing air conditioning for 20 years and you just rocked my world. How do we, I'm asking the same question I said earlier.
Well, currently, if you're that 20-year guy, you blame the parts manufacturer first. They give me a junk compressor.
Oh.
You know, that's our internal joke is it takes 4 compressors to filter all the garbage out before you get a good one.
Right. Same thing with the Bosch fuel pump.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes 3 fuel pumps to clean the tank.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. They love to hate your fuel pump line. And every manufacturer of fuel pumps gets their day in court when they just keep moving from, different brand to different brand just to solve the problem they didn't diagnose right to start with.
Yeah. But I think going back to your, the way you describe this individual, they're a veteran in the industry and they've taken 10 years off from training. Now they're either training on their own. Let's just assume that they're not getting training at all. They've made a decision. Right. They're not reading a periodical. They're not going online. They're using service information as their guide. Now, if they have a solid foundation and they're able to look at service information and understand the principles are there, I feel that person has a good opportunity to still fix vehicles in a reasonable manner. Are they as efficient as they can be? Are they exposed? If you have a shop that's not working on hybrids at all, you may not attend a hybrid class because you've made a decision that that's not what the shop should do. But I would say that would be the rare exception. If you haven't been to training in 10 years, the shop owner should be looking at your efficiency and your strategy and probably your returns. And you're just plodding along in the industry, hoping that you don't get fired.
Basically, you just said shouldn't we drag the shop owner in this issue? Here I've got somebody that has it hasn't trained in 10 years, and really, frankly, it should be my fault as the shop owner. Absolutely. I don't care what kind of commitment you get. If I was a shop owner, wouldn't I be looking to build commitment within my team to recognize how important it is to have a training resume?
You would be, but from talking to shop owners, their fear is, I'm going to train this person, this individual, and what's going to make that individual stay at my shop? Did I just train this guy for my competition that goes down the street? That's always been their
that's the worst. It's the worst.
They'd rather keep an uneducated technician on staff than educate.
It's the worst excuse in the world, and I hope people would get off of it.
I agree. I mean, to go along with what Bob was saying, the foundation is by far the most important thing. I say that all the time. People ask me, what does it take to diagnose vehicles or whatever? And basic electricity. I always find people are most of the time lacking in that, but also being able to interpret data, whether it's scan tool data or multimeter data or lab scope data. A lot of times they know how to plug their scan tool in, they know how to pull the trouble codes, they know how to pull up some data stream, but do they fully understand what that data stream is trying to tell them? Hey, I got fuel trim values and it's positive 8. What is that actually trying to tell me? Why is that happening? Where should I go next to do what types of tests? That's what I feel is lacking the most. You almost need like a mastering data analysis class. If you could develop something like that for any situation that people come into, they do it. But in a nutshell, with today's technology, as more difficult as it is to diagnose, it's also easier in some aspects. A lot of times you pull a code out, back in before OBD2 and everything else, you pull a code out, you would have to diagnose that code. If you just replaced that, whatever that code component was, you probably weren't fixing the car. It's not necessarily the case anymore. You pull an evap code out, most people will look at this and they'll say, you know what? It's probably going to be the vent solenoid or whatever, depending on what the code happens to be. And they've got about a 50-50 shot where it wasn't ever that high of odds before. And a lot of times shop owners and technicians are just playing those odds. They're saying, well, most of the time when I pull this code out and it's giving me these results, most of the time it's this part. If it's not this part, I'll worry about it after I put that part on. And that's where the parts guys,
it ends up in my warranty bin.
Yeah. They come into play and they say, hey, I didn't misdiagnose a car. It must be a faulty fuel pump or whatever. So that's where the difference.
So there's techs out there that pride themselves in putting the right part on based on the tree and yes, no questions and everything, getting to the real source. But if we're putting on a part and that didn't solve the problem, now we go to the next step. Are they sending that back to you because they don't want to charge the customer? I may know the answer to that question.
It depends, right? It depends upon the philosophy of that repair shop, right? I mean, most of us have heard, cars that were 150% better than when they came in. What I mean by that is they put the first part in and, you get the phone call, didn't fix it, but we made it 20% better. But I need to replace this part. That one was old. And now I need to replace this next one because it's also old. So we're kind of working through it. And then you get the call back and we need to get approval for more money. Well, we made another 30% better, but it's still not fixed. And eventually it reaches, the car's 150% better than it was, but it's still not fixed. And now it's at the next shop and it's still not fixed, right?
There's some almost truth to that as well. And actually at our international sales meeting, our company's celebrating a 100-year birthday here. Quick plug on that.
Yeah. Great company.
And so at our international sales meeting here, I'm actually doing a session for our sales force on associated part sales. If you get a vent restriction code, and quite often I'll see a shop sell a vent solenoid, comes back 2 days later for a canister, and now they fix it. Why didn't you just sell both of the components up front? It costs you an extra $60, but it's that much better at this point.
Why didn't you hook up the proper tool?
Well,
use your flow meter and your pressure gauge.
Right.
In 5 minutes, you would have known if the canister was restricted, right? So you made a good guess. You think, well, vent solenoids do plug up. You have to prove it. You have to do the rule of two. I have a good hunch. I should prove my scenario. Rule of two. Can I prove it? Can I, with 100% certainty, know that I'm doing the correct job? I mean, I just heard that scenario 3 days ago from a shop. It had been to a couple of other shops, and the telltale sign from the consumer was, I'm having trouble fueling the vehicle. So they went right to the vent solenoid.
Right.
They replaced the purge solenoid. They replaced the filler neck. They never hooked up a smoke machine with a flow meter and a pressure gauge
to see how it could escape.
And the shop that got it went out there and in 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes, knew you have a restriction. Let's go to the back. And sure enough, it had a plugged up charcoal canister. So, I mean, that's the thing that you get to is How do you prove it? How do you
Right.
know in your gut that you're doing the right thing?
Or even post-testing after the repair.
Yes.
You know, Carmen, I think to go back to your original question, I think it all comes back to a shop management ideology. The good shops, the ones that are probably watching this, the ones that are attending training, they've bought in. They understand the investment required to do this, and they build in the ability for the technician to do post-testing after he's made the repair to verify. I mean, that should be, it's common sense, we would think, is when you're done diagnosing and repairing the vehicle, you retest it again to make sure that you've actually fixed the correction or corrected the issue that the customer brought it in for. It doesn't happen too often. I've seen way too many technicians pull the car out in the parking lot and say, yep, it's done.
Code's clear. Checking his light didn't come back on. It's
Right.
done.
That
So it's
very
for the whole-
rarely ever happens from my experience.
Yeah.
You know, if they feel confident that they've got it repaired, like you say, they're going to take it for a road test. Maybe they'll look at some mode 6 data or something if they've been in some training, but they don't take the time to, if it takes, put it this way, if it takes longer than 10 minutes to verify the repair, it's probably not getting verified.
Right. Right.
Man, I tell you, this has been great. Can't even believe I have you three in this room. This is so cool. Hey, at Jasper Engines and Transmissions, quality and customer service is their number one goal. And man, I thank them so much for being with us for like almost 3 years now. Their associates take pride in their work, and it shows in the quality drivetrain products that they produce. Their quality and customer service has kept them growing for 76 years. I've been to the plant. If you ever get a chance to take that tour of Jasper, please do. Associate-owned company. Very proud of what they do. Hey, I want to mention that the screens that we have that we're watching this with, there's been a lot of chat, and I don't mean to not talk to the chat, but based on the size of my glasses, I can't read it. It's, you know, I usually have a big screen in front of me. So thank you all for doing your own chat, and especially on Facebook. You know, what I started to think about is your stuff has been so powerful. And like you said, the ones that are watching this, the ones that come to training don't need it. They get it. They understand it. So I guess my appeal to anyone who's out there on Facebook is to, you know, maybe share this within your own network and say, hey, Bob, not Bob, hey, Joe, you really need to watch this little discussion, and maybe it may change you and give you a bigger, better, stronger commitment for the job that you have, for the person that you're working with and for, and also to the profession that you've committed to. And I think it's
kind of like the old adage of, I can't change the world, but to one person I can change their world. And that's what I think is huge. If we can reach one person, and they reach another person, and it grows organically through that. But it's I've got friends that are on both sides of the spectrum. Some are very successful shop owners that very committed to training and invest highly in their staff. And then there's the other ones that go, they wouldn't even go to a free class because they don't see the value, or they've got other things to do, yet every day they're struggling. I can't find a good technician to come work for me. I can't, I spent 8 hours on this car. And so when anybody has any type of objection to any type of cost for training, they go, well, how would you diagnose this vehicle? Well, we spent 6 hours the other day doing it. Well, what are you billing? Let's say you're billing $100 an hour. You just wasted $600 trying to fix that one car. If you would have spent $100 on training, you would have learned how to fix that car. And so training doesn't cost, it pays. And there's huge benefits in that. And
to me, it's a three-legged stool. It's something I taught, for quite a few years, is there's three things you need to be successful: a properly trained technician with the right tools and the right service information. If it's taking you 6 hours to do anything and it's repeatable, you have issues. One of those three things is missing, and you should be, as a shop owner, capable of determining what those three things are. If you can't determine that as a shop owner, you need training as a shop owner to understand your individuals. And if you're not capable of doing that, then hire a consultant that knows how to analyze your technicians, that knows how to figure out what their skill set deficiencies are, and then let's plug that. Let's plug that leak. We can help. And you're 100% correct. I have a passion. I won't give up. Your guys are not going to give up. We're going to keep training the people that we want to train. We're going to try and cast the net and get a few more disciples in our programs. And we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep working, and we're going to keep working, and we'll get there.
I love it. Disciples.
Yep.
I mean, really.
Yep.
I mean, that's what you're trying to make.
We
right?
use that analogy. I've got a full-time development staff that researches and writes and goes through the process of validating our material. And then we do train the trainer. And we said that's kind of like handing the material off to the disciples.
Sure.
And then they go out and spread the word
Cool.
every night throughout the country.
So I was at Vision. We did a live town hall maybe 3 weeks ago. Mark Roberts was there. He's a shop owner. And he said, I'm going to technical classes, even though I haven't teched for a long time.
Kudos.
We asked him, what was his motivation to do that? He says, so I know what training my guys need.
Yes.
Well, and another thing, I always encourage shop owners to send the service writer in. So my previous shop, it's mandatory now that the service writer goes to every class. Like the air conditioning class I did yesterday, a highlight is don't replace just the compressor. You need to replace the accumulator, the orifice tube, and now the condenser, and possibly the cooling fan, because it's not drawing airflow again. That's all going to add up to longevity and better performance of the compressor. So in my old days, I'd go there as a technician. I come back with all this great new knowledge, and I'm telling the service writer, it's got a bad compressor, but we have to replace this, this, and this. And he goes, well, no. Why would we do that?
I've done it this way forever. This is what I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And he says, I'll never use those compressors. They always blow up. Well, so by having the service writer attend the technical training or the shop owner attend the technical training, they understand what the technician just learned and why they're making the recommendations that they are.
It's a homogeneous relationship in communications and knowledge. It's one big ball. I mean, everybody needs to be in it.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, look we're at AVI. We're at their wonderful training seminar here. We're upstairs in one of the offices. So glad to have had Ryan Kooiman, Director of Training, Standard Motor Products, Bob Pattengale, National Training Manager for Bosch and Jon Forro from AST and Automotive Instructor here at AVI. Guys, I want to give you one last thing to help you sum it up. And I want to use the word future. Wow, it's coming at us hard, hot, heavy. If you're not getting trained as a technician, if you're not getting trained as a shop owner to know what's coming up, how lost are we going to be in the next 2 to 3 years, or 5 or 10, however you want to take a look at it? Because I know you guys are seeing things and dealing with stuff. I mean, you got to, you know what's coming up in the next 2 or 3 years. God, you guys are inventing it at Bosch. Guys, give me a summary on that, on the future.
It's going to be tough, with all the changing technology that evolves every day. I think it was Matt Fanslow, if I'm not mistaken, put a post or forwarded a post on Facebook that said the automotive industry is second to computer code, only to Google.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so
let's not give Matt too much credit. I know he's watching this, actually. We don't want his head to get too big.
Is Matt on
good
the
friend.
list? Maybe.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
me
he
too.
is.
I read that, and that really sums up the point you're trying to make, Arm. It's the technology is changing at such a rapid pace, and everybody talks about technician shortages and everything else. I think the industry has to change, but also the consumer's beliefs have to change. The typical consumer has no idea what caliber of technician is needed to be able to properly diagnose and repair these vehicles. And that is one area that I think if you make the consumer's mindset change somehow, magically.
One at a time, the education process is up to the shop owner, is up to the service writer or advisor. It is up to us in the shop to do that. Mm-hmm. I don't know, you agree or disagree? Because who in the industry is going to promote that?
Well, to piggyback on to John's point there, I think he just answered the question there of who's going to do this. Well, we start promoting this as a high-tech industry, not only to our customers, but also to the people we're trying to recruit and draw into this. It's no longer the dropouts, the misfits, whatever. We now start recruiting those people. You can't get hired at Google. Come to the second leading technological industry, auto repair, and start drawing those people in there.
Wow.
And it's a new opportunity for these type of people. So
I like that.
I follow the Koch brothers adage of creative destruction. each new technology destroys one old thing, but it creates probably 10 new opportunities with that. That's where I feel we're at.
Thank you for that. Bob, I'll let you have the last
Yeah,
word.
I think I'd sum it up as we have millions and millions of cars on the road, and every person we're talking to right now has a mode of transportation, whatever that brand is, whatever the technology is associated with it. Everybody depends upon transportation. And I think it's the message that we need to get out there is someone has to fix these vehicles. So when you're a young individual, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, you need to capture that as an opportunity for them, that you can come into a great industry and you can be Superman or Superwoman, that when something breaks, you fix it. And that is a value that you have a difficulty of explaining, but yet when you're a technician and a car comes in on a hook and you fix it and goes out the door, you don't realize that you put everybody's life back together in that world. And that's the thing we don't stress. There's a great future in this industry. And I would just say it is that the very last statement is remember the basics. Hybrids didn't exist when I started, right? I started when fuel injection first began. You know what? I had a good foundation and I've adapted because I had a good foundation. So if we fix that part of it, you can adapt to the technology that's coming out.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Excellent job. Excellent job. Appreciate it.